Today, we're walking through the full spectrum of how small businesses are using AI right now, from complete beginner all the way to what I'd call genuinely pro level. 4 tiers, noob to pro. That's exactly what this is. This isn't a tutorial. I'm not going to teach you how to build any of it yet. I'm going to show you what each stage actually looks like, what the ceiling is each one, and where the real leverage starts to open up. You can figure out where you sit. But before we get into the tiers, I want to spend a minute on why this even matters, because AI for business has become such a noisy phrase that a lot of people have tuned it out entirely, and the ones who haven't are usually buying into some version of the hype without understanding what they're actually building toward. Here's the actual problem that most small businesses I see are having. The businesses run on human bandwidth. The owner is the bottleneck. The team is the bottleneck. When the business grows, the answer is always the same. Hire. More leads, hire a salesperson. More clients, hire an ops person. Volume goes up, the headcount goes up, and the margin doesn't move no matter how much the top line grows. That's the ceiling most owner-operated businesses live inside. The businesses that figure out the right AI infrastructure are the ones that break that equation entirely. The operational surface area of the business stops being proportional to the number of people that are running it. Output scales, headcount doesn't have to, and the 4 tiers that we're about to walk through are basically a map of how far along a business is on that path. Tier 1 is nowhere near that shift. Tier 4 is living it every single day. All right, so Tier 1, the noob, browser-based. Tier 1 is where most small businesses are right now. Someone on the team is using Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, one of the big consumer tools, and they're using it through the browser. That's the setup. Employees using AI in the browser. And I gotta be honest here, because this tier has gotten significantly more capable over just the last year, and it'd be a disservice to call it the copy and paste tier anymore and just move on. The browser-based experience, what you're doing on the web, what it was even 12 months ago. Now Claude has over 200 connected apps. You can connect it to Gmail, Slack, Notion, Asana, Figma, ChatGPT the same, Gemini similar. The AI can read your actual tasks now, pull actual docs, read your messages without you leaving the chat window. I mean, shit, Meta just opened its entire ad system up to Claude and ChatGPT and any other AI through MCP connectors. So you can manage campaigns through natural language from inside the browser. Claude Code now has scheduled tasks even. You can save a prompt and have it run automatically on a recurring cadence, completely unattended from your web browser from the web. Don't get me wrong, there are teams using this to get morning briefings auto-generated, error logs reviewed, and follow-up drafts queued before anyone sits down at a desk, which is great, right? Google launched Workspace Studio at the end of 2025, which is a no-code agent builder built directly into the Google ecosystem that's powered by Gemini that can reason through unstructured data, execute workflows across Gmail, Drive, and Calendar. And if your business runs on Google Workspace, I mean, that's meaningful. Tier 1 upgrade that a lot of people just haven't explored yet. So Tier 1 done well is a connected workspace where AI has eyes on real data and it can act conversationally. That's not nothing. The ceiling is still real though, because even with all the connectors, the AI is still primarily responding to what you give it. You're driving every interaction. Nothing is running in the background without your input. That's the biggest thing. A human has to come in and start 98% of the time. And when you scale that across a team with no shared infrastructure, because they all have individual histories, individual context, no institutional knowledge compounding at the company level, the fundamental loop is still that the human initiates, AI responds, human acts on the output. That's Tier 1. It's a capable assistant. It's not really infrastructure. Now, I know that seems like there's a lot to use AI for small business already in Tier 1, which, don't get me wrong, there is. Okay, but you're going to see here in a second why I mean we need a whole infrastructure, okay? Because as we jump into Tier 2, which is the amateur and visual workflows, Tier 2 is where the architecture starts to change in a business, right? This is the Make, N8N, Zapier layer, and now Google Workspace Studio kind of fits here more too. Builders that connect apps and move data between them automatically based on triggers. And there's genuinely something valuable at this tier that goes beyond the automation itself. The thinking that building these workflows forces is the biggest thing, right? When you sit down and actually map out a workflow in one of these tools, you have to answer questions most business owners have never formally answered. Where does this data come from? What needs to happen to it? Where does it need to go next? What triggers the next step? That process, learning to think in systems and tracing the actual flow of information through your operation, is a real skill. For a lot of people, tier 2 is where they develop it for the first time. In the mental model, it doesn't go away when you graduate to more advanced setups. You take it with you. I mean, Zapier, it connects over 8,000 apps, and it's the easiest on-ramp for most non-technical teams. Make sits in the middle, a little more powerful, better for maybe multi-step workflows, and cheaper at scale than Zapier. N8N is probably the most technically deep of the three, with native AI agent support, persistent memory, and you can self-host it so your data never touches a third-party server. Google Workspace Studio brings the same visual builder logic into the Google ecosystem natively, with Gemini reasoning through the logic rather than just executing static conditionals, which, that's cool as well. I mean, the legitimate wins here are real. Lead comes in, hits the CRM, triggers a follow-up sequence, logs to a spreadsheet, sends a Slack notification, all without anyone touching it. That's hours of manual work eliminated, running reliably in the background. But the fragility problem is also real. Every branch in these workflows has to be anticipated and drawn by hand. The system is conditional logic, and the moment something unexpected happens in a weird field format, an API response that's slightly off, the workflow breaks. Someone has to find it, fix it, redeploy it. Once complexity grows, multiple conditions, loops, retries, parallel branches, even the more capable focus start to feel restrictive, right? You're still designing every decision that the system makes. The intelligence is yours, encoded in the canvas. The tool is just executing it. And that's the tier 2 ceiling. It's pre-designed logic that can't reason through an edge case or adapt to anything that you didn't anticipate initially. All right, tier 3, the pro, is terminal native now, and this is the actual inflection point, and it's more of a mindset shift than a technical one, because tier 3 is where you stop using AI as something you talk to and start using it as something that builds things for you. The specific tools don't matter. I've used a few different ones: Claude Code, Codex, the Chinese model. What matters is that instead of clicking around in a visual builder, you're describing what you want, and the AI writes the actual code, tests it, fixes it, and deploys it for you. You're not dragging boxes anymore. You're telling it what the business needs, and it figures out how to build it. The practical difference is speed and cost. What takes hours to wire together in a visual workflow tool, manually building every step, every branch, every error handle, gets done in minutes here. And the per task cost drops dramatically. Visual workflow tools charge you every time something runs. At scale, that bill gets ugly fast. And at tier 3, you're not paying that toll anymore. The other thing that changes here is what's even possible. The fragile stuff that breaks at tier 2, the weird edge cases, the unexpected inputs, the things nobody anticipate when the workflow got built in the first place, those stop being problems, because instead of being a rigid pre-built logic, you have actual code that can handle complexity, and the AI can now run things on a schedule without you ever touching it. Check something every few hours, run a process overnight, generate a report before you wake up, set it, and just goes. I mean, that's a different relationship with your own business than most business owners have ever had. Tier 3 is not the destination, though. It's what you use to build tier 4, because tier 4 is the absolute pro, the custom harness. Tier 4 is where the whole thing comes together. You take the building capability from tier 3 and you use it to build your own AI system, one that's built specifically around how your business actually operates, not a generic tool you've adapted, not a subscription that kind of fits, something that knows your customers, your process, your voice, your data. The internet is full of free working building blocks, tools, and code that other people have already built, tested, and made available open source. At tier 4, you're pulling those pieces in, stitching them together, and molding them into something that serves your specific operation. We're not inventing from scratch. You're now assembling just proven parts and customizing the last mile. That's what makes it fast. What you end up with is an AI that has direct access to your actual business data, a custom-built interface for your team, and the ability to take actions on its own behalf. The AI has those abilities now. So now we're not just generating text for a human to go act on. It handles the operational volume, content at scale, lead processing, follow-up, routing, reporting, the stuff that currently eats your team's time away. It runs autonomously in the background without somebody babysitting it. I've been building in this direction, cycling different AI models in and out depending on the task, all running inside one custom framework instead of a stack of separate subscriptions. The experience of using it is just different, right? It knows the business. It doesn't need to be re-explained every time. And this is the real Jarvis moment, the thing that most people actually imagined when AI agents became a thing. Not a chatbot you open a tab for, not a tool you have to prompt from scratch every single morning. An AI that lives inside your operation, knows your context, and can execute on your behalf. The one you can take with you everywhere, the one that's actually working while you're not. That's tier 4, and it's not science fiction anymore. Okay, so what's the real point here, right? Redeploying people. One more thing before we close, because I think most people land in the wrong place when they hear all of this. It's not about replacing the people in the business. A tier 4 setup can absorb enormous operational volume, but the things that are actually going to be driving revenue in a high ticket service business aren't operational tasks. Closing a deal still requires people. Building real trust with the client over time requires person to person interaction. And being the final editor or the final expertise review on anything that goes live, making sure it actually sounds like you and not a large language model, that requires a person. What changes at tier 4 is not that people disappear. What changes is that the people in the business stop spending their time on operational drag and get redeployed to the work that actually matters. High leverage conversations, relationships, quality control stuff. A lean team running a tier 4 setup produces the output volume of a much larger team while keeping humans in the loop exactly where it counts. Not fewer people, better deployed people. All right, Noob to Pro 4 tools. We got the browser base, we got the visual workflows, the terminal native building, and then we got the custom AI infrastructure using different open source projects and your own AI agent harness on your own app. I'd say most small businesses I see are still at tier 1, some at tier 2, very few are at the jump to 3 and 4, and that gap is where the real distance gets created. More of this kind of stuff on the channel. If it interests you, leave a like. What are you trying to automate in your business? Leave a comment below. This is Nolan. I got to go do some more build outs. So I'll see you guys later. Peace.